Welcome back to another episode of A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci. I'm Vincent A. Lanci, speaker, coach, and author of the book, Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health.
And I am Dr. Clarence Lee Jr.
I am excited to launch another episode for you all with a guest who has tons of firsthand experience to offer. When I was 21 years old, I was the victim of a hit-and-run accident while walking. After coming out of a coma and suffering from a traumatic brain injury, or you may know of as a TBI, I soon realized that it was time to put my mental health on a very high pedestal. This transformative experience has led me to create a podcast that is all things mental health. It has also led me to create my new book, Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health. Be sure to head to vincentalanci.com to check that out after the episode ends. Would it add value to your life to hear mental health professionals and advocates share their authentic stories relating to mental health? If you answered yes, you came to the right place. I want to start by congratulating you for making your mental health a priority. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate the show 5 stars and continue listening by subscribing. It's time for another episode of COVID Talks. I will continue to bring back previous guests to reconnect with you all and highlight their experiences during the COVID-19 lockdown to add immediate value to your lives. For this episode, I am happy to introduce my guest returning from the Season 1 finale. Throughout this global pandemic, today's guest has been on the front lines working in hospitals across California. He is on the verge of opening his own practice and has additionally been selected as one of the top Black entrepreneurs by Yahoo Finance. A former student athlete, Dr. Lee holds a degree in biology from the University of Incarnate Word and degrees in medicine and business MBA from Drexel University. Also a decorated war veteran, Dr. Lee served in the United States Air Force for 10 years with several assignments, his last being as a flight surgeon flying the T-38 and U-2 airframes in one of the most elite squadrons in the United States Air Force. We have a great bonus episode of COVID Talks ahead, so allow me to now introduce Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. Clarence, it's great to see you again, and thank you for coming on the show.
Hey Vince, thanks for having me on. I'm excited, looking forward to adding some value for everyone and being impactful with our time together today. So thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Would you mind please reintroducing yourself to our listeners and sharing part of your story before we dive in and get going? And also, please do touch on your role relating to mental health.
My name's Dr. Lee. I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri. I've been practicing medicine now for about 10 years. I'm really passionate about mental health and do tons of talks and presentations on the power of persistence, which has been really key in my life and one of the areas where I feel like I can add the most value to the world is teaching about persistence and doing resilience training. That's kind of like my passion project. Married. I've been married 8 years, got 5 kids, 14, 6, 4, and 2 18-month-old twins, Calvin and Camille, who are running the house right now. But overall, life's good. Just looking to add value where I can and, press my limits and help other people push theirs.
Absolutely. One of the reasons I admire today's guest very much is because he highlights persistence. And as an entrepreneur, for those of you listening on, it is the major key to your future success. But thank you again for sharing all that, Clarence. On each episode with a new guest, my guest and I go through a series of questions called the main event. For COVID Talks episodes, we will have a main event of its own. You ready to go?
Let's do it.
Great. So let's begin the show with getting into how your mental health has been affected overall from the 2020 pandemic.
Yeah, I would, it's so interesting how you don't really know how things are affecting you until you're kind of in the thick of it. I think for me, one of the things I noticed really late in the year, here probably 9 months, 10 months in, was how much my normal routines were giving me the ability to do what I was doing. And so, me, I'm really big into I like playing basketball and being active athletically. And gyms haven't been open, so I haven't been able to play basketball and do a lot of the things I really like to do and those kind of competition type of things. And I thought I did it my whole life, and there hasn't been any extended period of time where I haven't done it. And this is the first time in my life where, other than when I've injured myself,
Uh-huh.
where I haven't been able to play. And I think replacing those things with other activities has been the biggest thing that I learned this year, or how COVID has affected me, was hey, I need to replace those activities. So now I do more things that I wasn't doing before. Like, I've golfed more this year than I've ever golfed, and because it's open, right? And then and I've been out to surf a lot more, because those are, just being out and being active. Those are the things that really help me keep my mood elevated.
So, would you say, gathering from your statements, that exercise is very beneficial, not just for your physical health, but your mental health as well?
Absolutely, no question about it. That's been my experience. It's just interesting that like I said, you don't really know what's helping you or how something is helping you as much until you stop it. And exercise is one of those things for me that I noticed really quickly this year. I needed to replace my basketball time with something else.
I couldn't agree with you more. When I don't exercise, even if it's just taking an extended walk or doing 20 minutes of core, I don't think clearly. I'm thinking about things I shouldn't be thinking about. I'm stressing about things I should not be stressing about. So I'm very, very happy you highlighted that point. But overall, here, Clarence, what would you say the most difficult part of the entire pandemic has been for you?
I am naturally kind of like an optimistic type of person. So if I choose talking points with people, I'm usually going to focus on how the good side of what's going
Yeah,
on, and how how great things are. I think what's been really difficult for me, and a learning experience for me this year, has been to throttle back a little bit and
like that.
seek to meet who I'm speaking to where they are, and realize that this pandemic has affected every person in a different way.
Hmm.
And it may be, oh, I might be, because I'm a doctor, it might be, oh, I'm really busy and things are crazier than ever,
Hmm.
and but I might be talking to someone that's not working, or
Right.
that has lost their job. So I think that the difficult thing for me has been to realize, hey, yeah, it's great, encourage people, be optimistic, but sometimes how I approach conversations in on the initial, I think this year I've learned a lot in that area, to meet people where they are.
That's a great way to put it too. You don't really know what's going on in someone else's shoes. So if you can really resonate with them a little bit, it can go a long way and also improve their mental health along the way. But you mentioned how you haven't had that exercise as much as you need it, the places you wanted it to be. What are some ways you have been coping with this additional change and stress from the 2020 pandemic?
I tell you what, I built a gym in my house. so so I yeah, I've built a little gym, and I'm getting in there in the mornings, and getting a good sweat going, so that I'm able to kind of able to keep myself elevated. So that piece I've adapted, just kind of working out at home, and not having all the equipment that I'm used to having, but making do with what I got, which so that's been great. Um, and I would also say, checking in also with myself, kind of that
I like that.
i- i- like introspection. I feel like I have done a lot more this year, and me and my wife, um, just asking them, how are we doing? Because I'm really busy. Like I'm doing stuff all the time. I'm always got stuff going on, and you just keeping your mind busy sometimes
Mhm.
can you can neglect that introspection to see how I'm doing, taking a break. How am I really handling this? But I feel like this year I've asked myself, and I've talked more, checking in with myself more than I ever have before.
I think you make a great point there too, where reflecting on what's going on in your life can help a great deal, maybe lower some stress.
Absolutely. And also it brings up, when I have that time, it brings up um, things that I do want to talk about that I wouldn't, without intention, I probably wouldn't even bring up in the conversation because I'm so busy doing my activities.
Mhm.
But through that introspection, it highlights some of the areas that, that are important to you, that because I'm really busy, it's easy to neglect some of those things.
Great value right there, Clarence. Thank you. But I know you're going to be excited for this questions because of your personality. What are some of the positives that came out of the 2020 pandemic for you?
Yeah, I really, I probably the first thing pops in my mind is just the advantages with spending more time with the family and
Hmm.
having more time at home. I feel like my kids, are my wife's been home. She's a teacher, and she's been homeschooling my two boys, my 6 and my 4 year old, and we've just been able to do a lot more things as a family, and I think that has been um, really beneficial for our growth as a unit, and also being there to support each other at a higher level, instead of having the kids go out and go to school and be gone the majority of the day, and then coming back, we've been able to do a lot more activities together, and then also just being in tune with what's going on with each kid and being able to talk a little more in depth, since she's teaching the
Hmm.
stuff at school. Now you have a little better pulse on what's going on and what things are what they're learning. So I think that has been a huge positive for the year for us, especially for me and my family. Is just getting to know each other a little bit better and being more in tune with the needs of each person in the family. Um,
Yeah, that's
that,
great
that
advice. And we're definitely going to touch on how the children in your life has been affected by this. But if you wouldn't mind shedding some light for the listeners, you mentioned you still were able to do some family activities together. Would you mind offering one or two things that you and your family have been doing to kind of help our listeners out there who may be stuck by this virus, can't think outside the box, need to get their family out of the house?
Yeah, so we've simple things, honestly, man. Just going on walks,
Love that.
taking my boys out to ride their bikes, letting them roll around. I'm 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 doing the traffic, I'm doing the traffic scans, and I'm letting them, get out and ride and get some of that restless energy out because they've been in the house quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
This is the first, like I said, going out to the driving range is the first time I've ever taken the boys out there. I got them some clubs,
That's
so they're
cool.
out there. They're out there hacking away, trying to hit the ball, which is a lot of fun. Um, and But just things like that, just getting outside. Getting outside. My oldest boy, he's 6. He likes the video game. So if he does that little Nintendo Switch, and he'll play it all day. Like he's on it. But we have to limit some of his screen time. But
Very
I've also
important. Yeah.
learned that he likes that. So let me meet him where he's at. Let me play that game, and so I've played more Nintendo Switch I've ever played in my life this year. Um, so just activities like that, but mostly just getting up and being able to go outside and get some fresh air and move around a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much the top things that we do.
That's awesome. And I'm really excited to see that generation be our age and older because I didn't have a cell phone or much technology until middle school, seventh grade. I had a flip phone. I'm excited for this next talking point because of how involved you've been in multiple areas during COVID pandemic. Can you describe your work life? And we'll start all the way back in March.
Yeah, so I practice what's called this pandemic has been really interesting for me because I practice what's called occupational medicine. So I did anything that has to do with somebody's job. I deal with
Yeah.
all the way from the pre-employment physicals all the way to if someone gets injured at the job, or all the way from hearing conservation programs if someone has noise exposure at work.
Mhm.
I monitor those to infection control. If someone gets an exposure at work, maybe a needle stick or something, they're trying to give somebody immunization.
Yep.
I do all those things. So this year has been really interesting because um, i- we have been learning in real time in front of the world, and as doctors and medical professionals, we're seen to be the expert. We're seen as the expert all the time, but this
Mhm.
year, I I didn't learn anything about COVID. In medical school. Yeah, I learned about immunology and I learned about viruses and the immune response and all these things. But I was learning real time. So, I'd be coming in and giving one recommendation one day, and then the CDC would update it, and then I'd be changing what I just told the patient based on the latest recommendation. So it's been really crazy, but it's been it's been challenging to work with employers on how to safely,
Mhm.
return their employees to work.
Yeah.
What's the best way to do it? What's the best way to handle when an employee travels? What's the safest way to
Mm.
reintegrate them? What sort of screening should you be doing if you are open? Taking temperatures, and what sort of symptomatology should you be screening for? So it's been an interesting year trying to help people, specifically employers, get people back to work, and also keeping public health kind of at the forefront and making sure they're doing it in a safe way. I mean, we're here in California. We're kind of going through a new kind of shutdown period now. We just actually started for the next 3 weeks. We're kind of going a little bit backwards as far as
Mm.
how open we were, and that conversation is okay. Now that we're not going to be open, how do we uh, shift and transition based on the new guidelines and what we're able to do, and still keep people safe? Because as essential workers, people are still out there working. Some people don't really, I said, have the luxury of not going, and you got to go
Yep.
in when you're in the front line. But it's like, how do you do it in the safest way? So it's been a crazy, crazy year. Um, but I'm one of the things I like to do is when I am having those interactions is to make sure I try to encourage employees, employers, and my patients that we are a resilient species. The human being has made it through a lot of things. We're going to make it through this as well. But it takes all of us doing our part to help us get past this.
Yeah, I can't imagine the crazy world you've been in there in the front lines in the hospitals. But Clarence, we all have children in our lives, whether it be our own, siblings, cousins, or friends. What advice do you have for everyone listening on to help with the mental health in the children in their lives?
I mentioned a little bit, but I would say first is just checking in with your kid, checking in with them, asking how they're doing. Um, y- when I have a big family, so we're always together,
Mhm.
and one of the things that I have uh, introduced a lot more this year is encouraging one-on-one time with each kid to check in, because the kids are usually interacting with mommy and daddy and all their siblings all together. We're all eating dinner together and breakfast together, and all those things are great doing things together. But I'll just encourage, hey, check in with the kid, and that one-on-one time is invaluable as well, and they
Mhm.
kind of look forward to that. And yeah, a lot more things come up during one-on-one opposed to when you're talking as a whole. So I probably say that'd be my one advice: check in with these kids, facilitate um, that one-on-one time, so that you guys are able to connect one-on-one with mommy or daddy. And so I would probably say that's my best advice, and ask the questions. And then the second thing would be ask the questions and then listen. Listen. I feel like as parents, um, and even as adults, it's maybe I might be the only one to struggle with this, but it's like a continuous. I want to help. I want to give you advice. I want you to be better. So it's like a out spewing of advice all the time, and like I've been there, I've done that. I want to help. But the next thing I would say is just ask the questions, and then just listen, because the children, it's amazing some of the insights that they have when you let them talk. Ask the question and listen. So yeah, that would be the second thing I'd say.
Both of those were great pieces of advice. And Clarence, thank you so much for coming back on the show again for another episode. I know our listeners are going to see all the value in your episode. I loved how you found a substitute for your normal routine. You found that those routines were still giving you the ability to live your life. Granted, you can't exercise the way you want to, but you just pivoted a little bit. I loved the emphasis you placed on your family, especially the one-on-one time as well, because these kids, they already have their whole lives out of their hands, relying on the adults in their lives. And now the only thing they knew was to go to school has been taken away. So that one-on-one time is definitely helping them immensely. But it is time for the last word. And as you know, I also do this on my other podcast series, What It's Really Like to Be an Entrepreneur too, because I want our listeners to really get to know the guests I bring on. Is there something that you would like to share with everyone that we did not get to touch on yet today?
I would probably encourage each individual. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, and when we spend the majority of our time looking at things we can't control, that that's a way to spiral into anxiety and depression because things are out of your control. So what I would encourage each person, as we go through this second wave right now,
Mhm.
and we're going, a lot of places are shutting back down. What I would say is shift your mindset to look more toward the things that you can control.
Mhm.
And that's when I wake up, what some of my routines that I do, how am I intentionally, introspection? Am I doing meditation? Am I doing some of that personal growth work? Those are some of the things that you could control. So focus more on the things you control. And then the second thing I would say is uh, what I found, which we hadn't talked about, yet today, was progress toward a goal is the fastest way for me to inject uh, happiness into my life. When I'm moving towards something and when I can fit today's uh, pandemic day
Mm.
into a goal line or a timeline for my goal or a progress line for my goal, then I can directly connect today with something that I'm moving toward. So many people during the pandemic said, yeah, I'm just going to wait until it's over. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. I can't do this. I can't do that. I would say focus on the things that you can control and then be intentional with moving toward. You can't move toward every goal, but moving toward a goal in a specific area every day of your life. I think those are two things to help us kind of get through this, and in a better light, and also in elevated mood and happier when we have progress. We can still make progress even during the pandemic.
Very well said. Would you now mind please taking the time to share your professional social media, the website, ways for our listeners to request your services and keep following your endeavors?
Yeah, so I'm at Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. on all the social media platforms. LinkedIn, just Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. Instagram, Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. Facebook, Twitter, all those social medias just at Dr. Clarence Lee Jr. My website is just clarenceleejr.com. If you stop by the website, you can check out some of the books. My latest one is Persist. And yeah, just clarenceleejr.com. You just peruse the website and see everything that I'm doing.
Be sure to check out all of that great content. And it is social media time for the show, and we're on whichever platform you like to use. On LinkedIn, we're at A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci. On Instagram and Facebook is at A Mental Health Break. And on Twitter, it's at Podcasts by Lanci. So you have updates from this show and what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. If you check out any of my books, DM me. I would love to hear from you all. We have Mr. Lanci Talks Mental Health, Left for Dead, A Story of Redemption, and How to Transform Your Mindset When the Norm is Changed. All are on my website now, which is vincentalanci.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate the show 5 stars and continue listening by subscribing. I'll see you on the next episode of A Mental Health Break with Vincent A. Lanci.